And what I've seen is what my job is. If you don't know by the end of this weekend, yes, I am an arrogant Italian New Yorker. Okay? All right, I tell it like it is. The one thing that I've always done with this work is take the woo-woo out of it. This is not woo-woo stuff. It became woo-woo stuff because, listen, you're thinking that we have to learn something new? Go back to your Old Testament. All those people lived on was turning to the prophets. All right? In ancient Greece, they went to the Delphi, right? To Delphi in order to get messages. So we believed in this stuff way before now. All right? But what happened is everything wound up shifting midstream. And really, I've got to say, even though the advent of the New Age brought out material for everybody to understand, it also made things woo-woo. Okay? You got people with crazy ideas out there. It's just like, we're not crazy, just so that you know, Jamie. I'm a psychotherapist. If you feel that, we can talk afterward. But you are not crazy. We are normal. This is normality. You receive messages every single day. As a matter of fact, if you're talking with anybody now and you express one of your experiences, I can assure you somebody in a group of people you're talking to is going to go, "You did too? Oh my gosh, I did the same thing." Okay? My wife is a vice president of business for her company. She meets a lot of executives when she goes to lunches with them. And they will always ask her, "So you married?" "Yes." "Okay, what does your husband do?" "Well, he's a psychic medium." And the first thing they say is, "Wow, that's interesting. That's exciting. You know what? I've had some experiences." And these are CEOs. The thing is, you fear sharing yourself. You fear that you think you're an anomaly. This room right here, you've had more experiences than maybe the mainstream people, right? But you fear sharing that. But what I love that Lyssa was saying is talking about it. If you really think of any of the spiritual masters, they never sought out their followers. Their followers sought out them. Why? Because they were talking. They were sharing. They saw a group of people being happy, listening, maybe their lives changing, and the outside had said, "I want to be part of that. What are you talking about?" And that's how it grew and grew and grew. Now, I don't mean that you have to now go to 42nd Street on Times Square, get a soapbox, and tell everybody that the sky is falling and sell flowers at the airport. No, you don't have to do that. I'm talking in natural conversation, like attracts like. Yeah. And you will attract those around you. Assume that any group of people that you're with, you're there for them to share something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. Your group is being attracted together, so you can share what you know. And again, you don't have to put the woo-woo in it, like, the other day I visited planet Exxon and I came down. Yes, another person next to you might think, okay, that's crazy. Okay? But I had an insight. I know you wouldn't. I know, really. Totally. But if you shared, I had this incredible experience. Just what a dream I had one night. It was so wonderful, and I got all this information. They would turn around and share their dream with you too. And I can assure you, there are more of you. We really think, you said, we're the norm. Absolutely, this is the new norm. The minority are the people who want to feel like you feel, who want to not have the fear, but who have all the experiences. So if they know that somebody else is having that experience, or knows something that they know but they don't want to share, and you share it with them, you open it up for them. And that gives them the opportunity then to feel part of this group, part of this wholeness, because the group just keeps expanding. It's not minimizing, it's getting bigger and bigger. We're not woo-woo. We're right here. We're physical beings. We're here and we can fly. Isn't that great?
Wow. That is great. So, Andy, you're such a part of this. Like, you started a publishing company dedicated to this sort of medium, of this type of being culturally. So I think it's an important part of integrating this into a bigger culture, what you're doing. But what was your vision for creating the publishing company on this?
Exactly that, to give voice to, because still, you know, with this concept that we create worlds through words, books are still an incredibly powerful force in reaching out and radiating out your messages of wisdom, upliftment, insight to people that can experience that on their own, in the privacy of their own home, you know, in their own way. So the funny story about how this came about in actuality was that I was, as my sister said, I was with the Department of Justice for over 20 years. Prior to that, 18 years in the Army. So I was pretty lockstep government gal. And my body started to break down. And I literally could only be at my office for maybe a couple of hours before I physically could not be there. At the time, I had enough whatever status I could work from home, so I was kind of making it work. But I really got the message that, you know, how bad do you want this to get? You just want to call it quits, or do we have to like put you in the hospital, like kind of that kind of thing? So I called it quits. I said, fine, I have no idea what the next step is, but I was telling my co-workers, because I was leaving at a rather young age, relatively speaking, they're saying, what are you going to do? Like, this is ridiculous. What are you going to do? And just as a kind of a side thought, I said, I'm going to go into publishing. And the only reason I said that, quite frankly, is because I really thought I was going to go into writing and write my great novel and share all these great ideas. But when you're in a bunch of lawyers, that you never want to talk about what you're writing. It goes south very quickly. So I was just like, yeah, publishing. No, and nobody cares. That was like it was the experience. I'm going into publishing. Oh, okay, so like, and they're just going, this is great. I'm just going to stay with that. So I retire. I'm hanging out with my sister. It's like 2 weeks after I retired, and my sister's kind of looking at me like, so what are you going to do? And I, in a very laughing way, said, well, I've been telling everybody I'm going to publishing because that's hilarious and nobody cares. And she looked at me and she's like, well, if you did go into publishing, what would your company name be? And I go, well, I'm so into dragons. It would have to be dragons. And we kind of laughed a little bit. I had a phone call to place whatever. I was gone for an hour, come back, and my sister says, so the name of your publishing company is Sacred Dragon Publishing.
Wow.
I've already got the URL, and oh, by the way, I have your first client.
Wow.
The name of the book happened to be something about dragons. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
So then I go out to the, Sedona, and I get the whole Sedona effect, and it's like, there it is. But honestly, I did not see that coming, other than the offhand comments. The only other thought I'd like to share, just kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about, and kind of like this interdimensional way in which we're expanding consciousness, is I have this fun thing I do with my friends called surfing dimensional slipstreams. And really, that's kind of something that has been coming through for me so strongly, is the extent to which we live and experience our lives on a multidimensional plane when we are ready for it. So that's the other piece of this quantum creativity with the omniverse, because as Alan took us on that amazing journey out there, but really this idea that at a moment's, just through our thought, we can surf the dimensional slipstreams, is jumping timelines, going into different vibrational frequencies to experience different realms right here. You don't need a plane ticket. There's nowhere to go but right here. It's phenomenal. And I'm just hanging out talking about this stuff to my friends. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And so I just think, talking about being normalized, you know, and hanging out with a group of, hey, you want to do some dimensional slipstream surfing? Of course, in California, that's gonna, you know, come off pretty well. But anyway, so
Wait, how many books you have now?
I've only been in publishing for about 3 years, so my current catalog is about 8, but I've got 5 new projects coming, and I know I've got a couple more out there. So.
So Suzanne, you're going on your 10th year in March. How has the festival conferences changed, and what have you noticed in the people coming for you? How's the whole public different?
Good question. I think that in the beginning of me offering events, well, the first event was a book launch event, right? And I had written a book that was really more about practical spirituality 101 and personal development. And the people that I brought along were more along the mainstream lines of just basic spirituality. And also like personal development in the way of fitness and nutrition. And so that was the realm I was in at the time. I was a personal trainer for 20 years and a nutrition coach before I really dove into the mind, body, spirit realm. But even that first event, which my sister was at in Pleasanton, California, even at that first event, people were bringing spirituality into their presentations about personal development. Even when it came to fitness and nutrition, like people were expanding their mind already into this idea that you can be as fit as a fiddle and you can, you know, eat very healthy food all day and you can still be in a state of dis-ease, right? And so what is the answer to that? And the most basic one would be integrating body, mind, and spirit. And just this recognition that body, mind, and spirit are one, and if one is out of sync with the others, you're going to have dis-ease, distress, right? And I would see a lot of that in my personal training clients. Yes, they'd be fit as a fiddle, they'd be eating healthy, but you know, they were in such distress or stress over relationships or work, what have you. And so that inspired me to start Mind, Body, Spirit workshops at the fitness center that I was working at.
Wow.
But then I moved to Sedona, right? I had called to Sedona, I answered the call, and I got here, and the first thing I felt called to was sort of going back to the old retreats with ceremony. And that's why I'm looking at Elizabeth, because she was there. I felt called to do the old-fashioned goddess type retreats that they did in Greece and in Ireland with the Celtic sisterhoods, and right, Delphi you mentioned, and it was very ceremonial. You know, we had sage and incense and holy water. Elizabeth bought holy water, and we were doing bowls and drumming and chanting, and so a very like immersive ceremony, ritualistic type of smaller retreat experience. Then I started to feel called to just expand more and more, and I started a television network called SciSpy.tv, which really I had to reach out to do a weekly show. I had to interconnect with many people who were well-known names in the spiritual industry and interview them for my show. As I did that, I started to get much more interconnected into the wider world of those who were best-selling authors and internationally recognized speakers, and they really opened my mind. Some of these people like Irvin Laszlo and, you know, just really well-known luminaries, and they really opened my mind to these amazing ideas and concepts. And so I wanted to have them on stage to open the minds of, you know, more and more people so that they too could benefit from this incredible knowledge and wisdom that these luminaries were sharing.
And it's been growing, right? The whole, well, I mean, you had the full house last year. So.
Right. That's really, I'm going to say how it changed is, yeah, just really getting in touch with those who are really serving on a global level. And I like to call them really thought leaders. Mm-hmm. Right, because if you say always spiritual, like you might be missing out on some people who could benefit from coming and maybe get spiritually inspired, but really they're thought leaders.
How much time do we have here? for this panel?
I don't know that we're necessarily
Oh, okay.
limited. Maybe
Well, I have a
go
couple
for
more
one more
questions.
round and then
One more.
Audience participation.
Oh, right.
Audience participation.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay. Here.
Okay, so you have this esteemed panel of
Okay.
people to ask questions.
Anybody have a
of.
question? Oh, we have a question over here. I'd like to go down with. I remember him. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my only regret is that I'm not going to be able to experience all of you because there's just not enough hours in the day, because I think you're all amazing. But my question is the difference between a channel and a psychic medium, in a sense where when you are channeling Lyssa and Ayapi and Jamie, when you're channeling, do people expect you to be like a psychic medium, to be able to answer questions that a psychic medium would ask? Are people, and can you deliver?
So you're asking that to who?
Well, I guess I'm asking
Oh.
you
Okay.
Any of the mediums,
yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I find that everyone channels in unique ways, and we could even call it a multitude of things. Instead of just channeling, we could call it connecting, we could call it intuiting, we could call it relaying information. And it's unique in the way that someone will channel, and even the energies that they're connecting with, and the kind of information that will flow through. So to directly answer your question, I do find that sometimes people are requesting of a channel, when I'm channeling, that they're looking for answers that are very specific to them, something like a psychic medium would deliver. And the energy that I'm channeling doesn't work that way. And so it doesn't manifest in the same way. It's kind of like building a muscle. If you're going to sprint, you're going to build certain muscles. If you're going to hurdle, you're going to build different muscles. And that's how I feel the differences are, because there's similarities in all of it as well.
It's funny you asked that question, because when Kelly and Vincent were talking, I had that thought of that question. Because it's a real obvious question.
Yeah.
And again, this is just my perspective. But I feel that if the client is not understanding of the subtle differences, then they might bring expectations to me to be a medium, or to them to be an ET channel, or, well, Vincent anyway, but he's in all categories. But so some of it is the client. For me, I try to be really clear that the mediumship is not the kind of work that I do. However, when I was a child, I was very aware I had mediumistic abilities. But somehow the universe said, that's not what you're doing in this life. You've done it before, but we're putting you on this other path. So I had to follow that path that was authentic to me. And I'm going to say a joke, okay? And I don't... I hope it's going to be funny, because I'm not the best joke teller. I just don't want you guys to be offended by it. But I sometimes tell people I don't do dead people. I mean that with all love. It's just not my thing.
I said I'm Italian and from New York. I've heard worse jokes.
Okay. Well, I'm Italian from the East Coast, but not quite. Yeah. Okay. So I think for all of us, it's probably a good idea for us to be responsible to share with our clients, right? How we can assist them.
May I, Lisa?
Yes, absolutely.
To technically define it for you, okay? A psychic is not a medium, okay? But all mediums are psychics.
Right.
Okay, understand that. A psychic and a medium are completely different from a channeler. Can they channel? Yes. And channeling, by the way, is different from trancing. Okay? And this is defined in the UK. Bashar is tranced through Darryl. When an outside personality, entity from the other dimensions come into a person, and you allow that spirit to take over your voice, your body, That's trancing. You are trance channeling in a way, trancing. Channeling, we all do. Do you ever get into the zone, a zone, you have to write something, you have to talk about something at work or anything like that, give a speech, and all of a sudden you turn around and you say, damn, that sounded good. Where did that come from? Right? That information, that's channeling. So when you do it professionally, you're again allowing a spirit to come to you, but instead of taking over you, you're basically letting that spirit talk for you.
I'd like to add
Okay?
to that too.
Right, and yeah, definitely. Mediumship is strictly making a connection with the spirit, either subjectively or objectively. So in other words, if the spirit we see in our mind's eye, or hear, or feel, or know, that's subjective. But sometimes I might see your grandmother or mother standing next to you. That's objective, when it's outside of my mind, and I use my eyes to see that with, rather than my mind's eye. So that's a difference. And a psychic is strictly past, present, future. And by the way, just so that you know, over in the UK, it is against the law for any psychic to tell the future. It is against the law. You can be jailed. They don't mind psychics because there's one on every street corner, by the way. And if you really want cheap readings, they're $5 a reading over there because there's so many of them, right? Okay? But the reason why it's against the law is because by telling you your future, first of all, there's free will, and you can change that in an instant. Plus, it could also harm you in some way, especially if it's a negative future. And not all psychics, and mediums have that integrity to want to just help you, not hurt you in any way, okay, and harm you. So they decided, just make it against the law, you cannot tell the future. I do tell the future, but not in the way that you would think, like, oh yes, next week you are getting married, and oh, within 7 months you're having a baby. Okay. No, and I'm not telling you, don't, she's freaking out over there. Right away, that's not, wait, this one over here, she just hid. It's young, okay, so, no, so, it's not that type of future. It's like, yes, if you keep on the course of what you're doing right now, you will get that job, okay? But it's always reinforcing what you're doing and your choices. So that's what I know I personally want to do. But you wanted to expand on the channeling part too.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm definitely in agreement, alignment with what you're saying here. When you were talking about the channeling part, one thing I like to mention is the difference between a mental medium and a physical medium. Because there are physical mediums who will allow the spirit of loved ones to come into their bodies and affect the physical world. So that's a little bit different, but certainly the vast majority of mediums that you see today are what we refer to as mental mediums, where they're picking up on information mentally and then conveying it to you, as opposed to actually embodying somebody. And then also regarding the difference between a psychic and a medium, I always tell my clients, being a psychic just means that I pick up on information outside of the 5 physical senses, whereas being a medium means that I can use those skills to connect with loved ones who've crossed over. So again, referencing what you were saying, every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium.
Okay, I have another question over here.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. You wanted to finish that question?
Clarification of what you said,
yeah.
Kelly? Yeah. Clarification? You said a physical medium.
Yeah.
Is physical medium a channel then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's what I thought.
I have a
just wanted to be
question
clear.
here from, oh, did you have something to add to that, Yafi?
Yeah, just
Okay.
on the same line. So I offer both readings and channeling when I do individual sessions. And often people ask, how do I know which service to get? What's the difference? And generally, I would say the difference is the perspective. So when you are a channeler and you're channeling one of those high sources, right, ETs, Hathor, whatever, their perspective is very broad, it's very expansive. So yes, they can look into your energy, obviously, they can read your energy and your patterns, but the perspective is much more broad. So if you're looking for really specific details about your life, about yourself, then I would recommend a reading, which we're talking about psychic work, for example. Because the way I conceptualize it, I tap into your energy field and your higher self or your guides, however you want to see it, communicate then to my higher self or my guides. And then in essence, you're having a conversation with your higher self through me. So the perspective is going to be much more specific, much more personal, while a channeler channeling a being, a master, a teacher, just a perspective is going to be much more broad, much more wide.
And sometimes they overlap. So how's that for confusion?
Okay, I have a really good question from this beautiful friend of mine, Marsha from Pennsylvania, via Russia, and she is a multi-dimensional healer, and I think it's the medicine of the future where you just send frequencies. Okay, you want to talk about what you do and also ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction.
Of course.
I work in the area where I combine all areas of our experience, physical, emotional, mental, psychic, and beyond. And I wanted to ask you, since you've been in this area and you're experts, how you manage your physical body, because we do use it a lot. And sometimes I run into frequency discord. Sometimes you bring in energies and it's a difference in frequencies. So I wanted to ask how you handle it.
I'm asking everybody.
I want to know your answer to this.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it, so I can't just say, well, there's this one thing. But when you're talking about managing your physical body, so first of all, just your regular, everything that makes sense to maintain the physical body. So eating healthfully, getting a good night's sleep, managing your stress, working out, things like that, to be able to have a good, strong foundation. That's going to be important. Then, energetically, there are things that I do that I know everybody's going to have their own technique, but you're going to set up some sort of a system to be a gatekeeper. What do you allow in? How do you allow it in? When do you allow it in? So, for example, I'm not one of these people where I can't go into a crowded room because, oh no, the energy's too much. I have this way where when I'm working, I open myself up. And then when I'm done working, I close it back down. Also, I have the shield that I put up. So I surround myself in divine white light, encompassing universal love, joy, healing, and protection. I freely radiate universal love to others while allowing myself to be affected only by positive thoughts, feelings, and emotions. With ease and grace, this or something better. Thank you. So that is part of my regular daily routine. I also am going to work with my angels and my spirit guides to act as a gatekeeper. So when I'm opening myself up to be able to work, I will ask for only spirits of high vibration or benevolent intent to bring forth positive messages that serve highest good. And then I'm working with my spirit guide to make sure that that maintains, that continues to be the case. And then the last thing that I want to make sure I touch on, and then I'll give it to Vincent because I know he wants to talk. The last thing I want to mention specifically is that I limit the number of readings that I do as well, because it is exhausting. And if you keep pushing yourself, well, I mean, at the very least, if I do 5, 6 or more readings in a day, by the time I get readings 5 or 6 or more, I find that it's not quite as effective, not quite as strong of a reading. So I'm going to limit myself the number of readings that I can do in a day.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. And am I getting a reputation already, Suzanne? My goodness. Yes, absolutely. I find that I have done, and I don't know what you've done, as a medium, I've been brought around to different parts of the country to go to those areas that are so-called haunted. I've done a lot of clearings. I have gone to some of the worst haunted places that people have claimed. And the one thing that I found, and this is with all humans, and I teach this when I'm teaching mediumship, there is a promise in this life that as you develop your own spirituality, You are developing a natural protection. Don't we give out energy? And doesn't energy attract? Well, good energy also deters and pushes away. And so you'll find in your life that maybe you've had some acquaintances or people, maybe they've been more negative and you didn't necessarily want to be with them and you're more positive, that all of a sudden they drifted away. You didn't have to do anything to get rid of the negative got rid of itself. And that is the promise that we can become naturally protected. Now, when you're doing this work, you want to do that more. You want to pay attention to that more. But it's your belief. It's your belief about yourself, your power, your ability, your connection to something divine. We are God. Does God have to protect itself? No. But we do, because we're in these physical limited bodies, and what we're talking about is transcending. And what we're trying to do is transcend not out of the physical body and this earth, but to know that we're something higher than this physical body and the earth. We're just using this as a tool, and like Alan said, a school. So yes, is you can do any work, but when you believe in your heart that you are connected to this great source, that is its natural protection itself. And yes, you can do focused exercise. Let me tell you something. You know all the healing modalities that there are out there now, right? You got a ton of them. Stones, crystals, you can get them there. What makes them work? You're telling me holding a rock over my chakra is going to change everything? No. But believing holding a rock over my chakra will. So you can use anything then. So empower yourself and use whatever tools you want to do that. But remember, it's you that's making it work. A shield, everything, and you believe it. And I feel it in your heart. It's so wonderful. Is that when you believe that, that's how you get so protected, and you will ward away any of the negatives. Okay? I have yet to have an attachment. And I've been doing this work for 41 years. But some attachments, I don't mind. And my wife for 51 years.
Okay, you want to take 2 more questions here?
Okay.
Okay, right here.
Dangerous in my
Hi, I have a question, actually like a question within a question. So I'm curious about your experiences with psychedelics and how certain plant medicines or also like pharmaceutical medicines, how they can hinder, like say SSRIs or
Not
things
me.
like that. I don't know. Just your experience, like, do you think that can hinder your intuition? Or do you think that, yeah, like things like weed or mushrooms, like I've had very real experiences on mushrooms with Arcturians, and I haven't had them without the mushrooms. And it seems like sometimes whenever I try, the harder I try, it doesn't work. So what are your thoughts on that?
Plant medicine.
I will, and I'll pass it over. So, there are many things here that are helpful to us to help enhance some of the natural capabilities that we have. And having some of those experiences can really open some doorways and create some very physical changes in your body. Yet they are reflecting for us things that are natural to us. And I love how you even talked about, well, I had those experiences there, but then without it, it didn't happen. The same thing can happen with groups or classes, where it's like, well, I could do it when I was with Kelly, but I can't do it by myself. And as long as you keep working on that, I have this within me. That's the only reason something can even affect you, is because you naturally have it within you. So stick with, even though it sometimes feels like, oh, it's just not as good, stick with it, because it is very natural to you, and those plants can open that up. But like everything, if it becomes too much of a crutch, then you aren't using your own natural capabilities. You aren't expanding what's natural to you and building those muscles that we have for our subtle senses.
Bravo answer. Thank you.
I just want to mention also that it is sort of a two-way street. So on the one hand, when people take these tools, it basically is what they are. They take a substance that acts as a tool to help open your mind. Yes, of course, you're going to have the ability to see the world in a different way, which can make you more intuitive and more in tune in certain ways. But it also works the opposite way, where people who are actively working at developing their intuitive abilities or their sense of connection to the universe, when people actively work at developing those, they can actually have mind-altering experiences as though they were taking these substances. So what I find is that I am so highly sensitive, I cannot take things because it's just my body, I react adversely. But I also know that I can, using my abilities, I can tune in such a way where I can just naturally experience altered states of consciousness.
Oh, real quick, and I know Lyssa wants to do that. I'm going to make this real quick. Okay, I am not against anybody using that stuff because it just like I was a psychotherapist, right? Somebody came to me with depression. I might advise them, go get yourself on an antidepressant right now so that you can control things and control your thoughts, but don't depend on that and stay on that. You'll get off of it eventually. So I'm the same way with any of these psychedelics. However, I absolutely hate them. And I'll tell you why. It's the same thing. You give Ritalin to a little kid who supposedly has ADD or ADHD. Now all of a sudden he can focus. What does he give the credit to? The pill, the Ritalin. It's giving away your power. So when you do a psychedelic, and yes, I had an experience. Yes, of course. But you need the psychedelic to have the experience? No. Are you giving away your power by thinking that that's what's going to give you the experience? Yes. But if you want to experience it, in the 60s they did that, right? They wanted to experience all of that. They saw God, but they never learned how to see God without the psychedelic. That's transcending.
Yeah. Good answer, Vincent. Thank you. Okay. So, we're going to wrap it up. You want everyone to say goodbye, or should we just...
Yeah.
All right.
So we need to be out of here by 6:30. So we're going to wrap up tonight and our lovely guest panel. But we'll all be back tomorrow morning. And the first presentation, I believe, is at 9 o'clock. So thank you all so much. Enjoy a really lovely evening. Thank you, Yaki, Lyssa, Jamie, Kelly, Vince, and Andy, and Alan. Thank you. Join us for our 10th anniversary celebration during our 2025 Sedona Ascension Retreat, celebrating a new humanity uniting and a new earth arising. Featuring the world's most renowned spiritual teachers, best-selling authors, and award-winning performers. Our retreat includes a dozen indoor workshops and 8 outdoor journeys into Sedona's vortex sites, as well as a Native American performance by world champions, the Sinqua family. Enjoy on-stage presentations.
All crystallized seed at the center of that orb of light is your physical mind.
So today we'll be talking about religion versus spirituality, because I think there needs to be a clear line drawn between the two to get a better understanding.
This path that we're all on has been well mapped. The science is established, and what we are doing today is recovering it.
The greatest gift you can offer. I am your
host, Suzanne Ross, and I invite you to join us for our 10th anniversary celebration. Just visit SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. Reserve your seats today. I'll see you in Sedona.
I love every single one of you with all of my heart. I mean it. I mean it. I love you and you and you and you and you and you and you. Thank you so, so, so much.